Good morning, Donna.
Good morning.
Last week we had a lot of fun going through some bank records and pointing out a bunch of transfers, and that's kind of where we ended. And I want to go back and just kind of summarize that a little bit, if I could. And I know that one of our jurors caught an error in terms of what we pointed to as being a transfer when it was actually an incoming transfer from the defendant's personal bank accounts. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
All right. So if we could turn this on. So over the weekend, I went back and reviewed all those things that you testified to, and I put them in a spreadsheet like this, trying to show several things here. Over here, it shows the date of any transfer, shows the amount of any transfer, shows what Aspire account it's coming to. You'll see the 2077 account, the 5756 account, and for the jurors, that will line up with this particular exhibit number in this column. This column right before it shows who it's transferred to, and what it's going to show here are all of Nick and Nikki's personal accounts, and it gives the account, the last four digits of the account number here, and then the exhibit number that would correspond to that is here, and then the exact page number of the transfer shows up here as a Bates label number, JOH 452 or whatever. And so this is a summary that we did of all those. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And it goes to a second page, same information, where we had it. And then a third page. And then right here is a total of all the transfers that we were able to locate. Do you see that number?
Yes, I do.
And what is that number?
$54,538.82.
And then from there, we subtracted the funds that were deposited into the first statements, into the account, the 2077 account that we made a mistake on last week. And so we're subtracting that amount out because that was their money, correct?
Yes.
And how much is that?
$5,485.12.
And so that now leaves us with a total amount that we're seeking as impermissible transfers of how much?
$49,053.70.
And then as a final note here, do you see that we're stating that you gave testimony that the auto insurance of $564 was not part of what you're seeking, if I recall correctly?
That's what I thought. I
Okay.
did not know for sure, but
Okay.
I would suspect that.
But we're going to pull it out just to be
Yes,
safe.
that's fine. Yes.
Okay. And so, Your Honor, I'd like this marked as a demonstrative exhibit, and I do have copies I can hand to the jury for
Thank
them
you.
to look
You're
at.
welcome to do so.
May I approach the jury?
Yes, sir.
For each of you is a copy of this. And if you'll take one, and you'll have it to look over a little bit closer then. In those transfers that we just looked at and which the jury is looking at now, have you ever received a written accounting from the defendants explaining why they transferred all that money from their business account to their personal accounts?
No, I have not.
All right. When we looked at all those transfers last Thursday, and we also looked at all the checks that came in from various tenants, did we see any checks coming in from the defendants for the amount of rent they owed from October of 2015 through June of 2017?
No.
And did they still owe rent even though at that time they were purporting to manage the rental properties?
Yes.
And how much was their monthly rent?
$800.
And so from October to June, October 2015 to June 2017 amounts to, I think, about 21 months. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And 21 times 800 would be $16,800 in rent. Is that correct?
Read those figures once more to me. I can't calculate that fast in my head.
Would you agree with me that 21 times 800 equals 16,800?
I have to believe you, yes.
Okay. And so that is the amount of rent that the defendant should have paid from October 2015 through June of 2017. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you didn't find any evidence that that actually was paid by the defendants. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So in addition to the amount of transfers that they took out of their business account to their personal accounts that aren't explained, we're also finding that they did not pay the money they should have paid to for rent. So in addition to what's showing up on that spreadsheet we just gave the jury, you're asking for an additional $16,200 from the defendants to pay for that rent. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. There was some statements made by the defendants in their opening argument that I want to ask you about. We've not heard them testify about it, but they did mention it. And just to quell any questions that the jury might have, Mr. Casavelli represented that he was a member of your limited liability company called Garpton. Do you remember him stating that?
Yes, I do.
Is he now or was he ever a member of Garpton?
No.
Did Garpton ever use him as an agent to act on their behalf?
Well, he sold the properties. I don't know.
Was that done under a power of attorney?
That was power of attorney.
Okay.
So I don't know of any. No, I would say no, he did not.
Okay. So, and it's your understanding that acting under a power of attorney does not make him a member of Garpton, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then he also asserted that if he wasn't a member of Garpton, that he was somehow in some kind of partnership with you and Gary for the properties. Do you remember that do you remember him saying that in opening argument?
Yes, that's not true.
That's not true. What part's not true? That he was a partner with you and Gary?
He was never a partner.
Okay. And you never had any business arrangement with him of any kind?
No.
Okay. So when he acted to help you sell the properties, he was not acting as a joint member of Garpton, correct?
That's correct.
When he helped you sell the rental properties, he was not acting as a joint or as a partner and making him some kind of owner of those properties.
No, he was not that.
Okay.
He was just the power of attorney.
Okay. So no question in your mind about that?
No question.
Okay. Want to go back and ask you a couple questions about some earlier testimony. We talked last week about the fact that you felt you were susceptible to undue influence, and we heard Dr. Wilson testify about that.
Yes.
Remember that testimony?
Yes, I remember her testimony.
All right. Is it one of the elements under an undue influence claim deals with whether you took part in a transaction that would be normal for you? Is it normal for you to give away $127,000 to the defendants for a company that's worthless?
No.
Okay. Is it normal for you in any way to give away one of your rental properties to the Casavellis if that's what they're asserting that you gave it away? Is that normal for you?
No.
Have you ever engaged in that kind of gift giving or that kind of charity for that large amount?
No.
And then they also asserted that what you gave them in terms of a commission was a tip or a gift. Have you ever tipped anybody several thousands of dollars for a transaction or assistance?
No.
So, going to the vulnerable adult claim, do you believe that Gary was a vulnerable adult at all times from September 2015 through July of 2017 when the defendants were managing the rental properties?
I based that on Dr. Wilcox's information.
Dr. Wilson, maybe? Mm-hmm. You said Dr. Wilcox. Do you mean?
Oh, I meant Dr. Wilson.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay. Also, for Gary's 1/2 share of the collected rents that were not turned over to you, are you asking for double damages on those amounts under the financial exploitation statute?
Yes.
Do you believe Gary was at all times from September 2015 through July 2017 that you and Gary were susceptible to undue influence and were in fact unduly influenced by the defendants with regard to the collected rents the defendants or their company Aspire transferred into their personal accounts and for the rents that they personally should have paid but did not pay?
Yes.
Are you requesting a return of that rental income?
Yes.
Are you requesting pre- and post-judgment interest on those amounts
Yes.
found to be owed to you and Gary if permitted by law?
Yes.
Prior to allegedly selling Aspire to you and Gary, was Mr. Casavelli the sole member and owner of Aspire LLC?
Yes, he was.
All right. And because of the deception and fraud perpetrated upon you and Gary by the defendants and by defendant Nick Casavelli's company, Aspire LLC, in acting as a real property manager without a license and failing to properly account and failing to turn over rents, do you believe the corporate form should be set aside because failure to do so would sanction a fraud or promote injustice?
Yes.
And are you asking under the fraud claim for punitive damages?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, approach, Your Honor.
You may.
This is exhibit number 19 I'll be referring to.
Thank you.
I'm showing you what's marked as exhibit number 19. You take a quick look at that. Do you recognize this document that was obtained as part of these proceedings?
This information at the top is all correct. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what's at the top. Is there an email? Is this an email from anyone you recognize?
Yes, that's Nick's.
And what's the email address there?
madcatmedia1@gmail.com.
And you recognize that as belonging to the defendants?
Yes, that's Nick's.
And who is this email addressed to? Do you see that?
Yes, to you,
As your counsel?
Ryan Easton.
Okay. And then if you look behind that first page, there are a number of exhibits that look to be like some banking records of some sort. Have you reviewed these as part of this case?
Yes, but these amounts.
Just do you recognize them at this
Oh,
point?
yes, I do.
Okay. Move for admission of exhibit number 19, Your Honor.
19 is admitted.
Don, if I can have that back, I'm going to go through this with the jury just to let them see what we're looking at. So up at the top, you identified this as an email from madcatmedia1@gmail.com. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
You recognize that as belonging to the defendants. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then here you recognize that this was addressed to your attorney.
Yes.
All right. And then it says that as attachments, there are a series of checks. It says U.S. checks, which is going to, I believe, refer to a U.S. bank account that they have.
Yes.
Is that
I
correct?
understand that.
All right. Looking at page 3 of this exhibit, one of the things that the Casavellis, the defendants, have asserted is that they have made payments to you of the rental income. And shown here in October of 2015 is part of a statement. You'll see it says page 4 of 4, and it shows a check here in the amount of, if you can read that, Mike.
$4,925.
All right. So this would seem to assert that this is a part of a bank record. This is part of a bank statement for an account ending in 2077, that this amount of money, 2077, is exhibit number 17, which belongs, it's the defendant's business account we testified to last week, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever get this check right here?
No.
All right. Now it's showing up in their banking records. So I want to make sure you're clear. You never got this check.
We never got any check at any time from Aspire. Never.
Okay. And then I want you to look here at the check number on that if you're able to see it. And I'm going to kind of zoom in here a little bit.
I see it. I see it.
Zooming in actually helps my eyes. So check the check number there. And then check the check number over here. Do you see that they are not consecutive?
Yes. This is 85 and this one is 87.
All right. So they appear to be taken out of order. And do you recognize over here that, let me see. Do you recognize over here that whose signature that is?
That's Nikki's.
That's Nikki Castelli's signature? Okay. Now I want to show you the next page. And here again we have a series of checks. Let's go up to the top. This is for their November statement. And in their November statement, again, it shows a check right here. Check number, what check number is that? I'll have you testify to it.
8564.
And in the amount of how much?
$4,250.
Now, you testified a moment ago you never received any money from Aspire. Is that correct?
That is right.
So this would appear to be something that needs to be explained. Would you agree?
Yes. I never even knew what their checkbook looked like or anything that was labeled Aspire. I never saw. I never got a monthly statement. I never got anything.
Okay. So we're going to take a look at exhibit number 17 for November of 2015 here. And exhibit number 17 is the account ending in 2077. And I want to lay this on top, and I'm going to pull out a little bit here. Now, exhibit number 17 are records that have been certified by the custodian of records from U.S. Bank to be true and accurate. As we look at this first page, this looks like the typical first page of a bank statement for that time period, November 2nd, 2015 through November 30th, 2015. Do you agree?
Yes.
Then looking at the second page, this appears to be the back of page 1, and it just appears to be something you can use to reconcile your bank statement with. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then on page 3, we show some additional, or pardon me, the third page here, JOH 1404 is at the bottom. I'll show the jury. Here's the Bates label number right here.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yes.
And on here, they talk about checks that have been presented conventionally that are clearing in this particular time frame. Now, the check that they provide, or the document they provided shows that you got a $4,000 plus check that cleared in this time period. But do you see a $4,000 check here or here being cleared?
No,
Do you see a $4,000 check here?
no.
All right. Then when we flip one more page over, we see miniature versions of checks that have cleared. Again, these are relatively small checks, none of them showing for the amount of $4,000 plus. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yet when we looked at this exhibit here, Exhibit 19, this is what the Casavellis provided to you, and it shows a check being cleared that is not showing up on the bank records. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is this anything that you caused to happen?
No, I never saw that money. We never got that money.
And you never saw this check, correct?
I never saw anything that had a Spire name on it. Never.
Right, right. And so let's continue on. These are statements that were provided by the Casavellis at the beginning of this litigation as proof that they made payment. But we're not seeing payment over here, correct?
Right.
On the next page, again, we see a large check up here at the top being paid to Gary Johansson for $3,000 plus. Do you see that?
$3,375.
All right. Did you ever receive this check?
No.
That was for December of 2015. Then they provide a January 2016 partial statement. And again, we see a large amount of money going to Gary Johansson down here for $2,000 plus. Do you see that?
$2,825.
And this is this also a check you're saying you never received?
Never received that check.
All right. And then here on this check, whose signature is that?
That's Nikki's.
Okay. And then for a moving on to a February 2016 partial statement, the Casavellis provide a check here in a large amount to Gary. Can you read what that amount is?
$3,664.84.
Did you ever receive this check?
No.
Have you ever seen this check other than in this statement from the Casavellis?
No, I have not.
Then looking at March of 2016, we see another large check here made out to Gary Johansson. And can you tell me who that's signed by?
That's Nikki's.
And how much was the check supposedly for?
$4,950.
Did you ever receive this check? No. And again, it's just a partial statement that they sent, 3 of 3, for that statement period, correct?
Yes.
All right. Then looking at the next page, this is Bates label JOH 1590. This is for April of 2016. You can see that up at the top here.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then if you look down here, there's another check made out to Gary Johansson. Can you see the amount it's made out for?
$4,950.
And whose signature is there on that?
That's Nikki's.
Thank you. And then the next partial statement they provide is for May of 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I see it at the top.
And then down here at the bottom, do you see another large check made out to Gary?
No,
I'm sorry, I got the wrong one, didn't I?
Made out to Gary.
I pointed at the wrong place, didn't I?
It's up here. It's $85.70. It's the second one in the second row.
Second one in the second row. Oh, there you go. Thank you. And that is made out to Gary Johansson.
Yes.
And the amount?
$4,950.
And who's it signed by?
Yeah, Nikki.
And is the check number out of sequence with the other checks that appear there?
Yes, this one is $63.87. This one is $63.99 over here, and this is $63.88.
Okay. And then the next page here we're going to look at here is for June of 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you see a large check there made out to Gary Johansson?
$4,950.
And whose signature is that, please?
That's Nikki's.
All right. And have you ever seen this check before?
No.
Then I'm going to the next page. This is a partial statement for July of 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you see a check there made out to Gary?
Yes, I do.
And for how much?
$4,950.
And whose signature is that?
That's Nikki's.
And did you ever receive this check from Mr. or Mrs. Casavelli or Aspire? Did you ever receive this check from Aspire?
No.
No. All right, next page. This is for August of 2016. Do you see another large check for Gary Johansson?
$4,075.
All right, and whose signature is that?
That's Nikki's.
And were you ever in receipt of this check from either Mr. or Mrs. Casavelli or their company Aspire?
I have not seen that.
All right. And then on this page, this is a partial statement for August of 2016. I'm sorry, September of 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And we see a large check right here to Gary Johansson. How much is that for?
$4,075.
And who's it signed by?
Nikki.
And have you ever received this check, you or Gary?
No.
Okay. The next page is a partial statement for October of 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you see a check there?
Yes, $4,075.
And who's it made out to?
Gary T. Johansson.
And who's it signed by?
Nikki.
But despite being shown here, did you ever receive this check?
No.
Next page is a partial statement for November of 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And then there's a check here made out to Gary Johansson. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And for how much?
$4,050.
Did you ever receive this check?
No.
Who's it purportedly signed by?
Nikki.
Next page shows a partial statement for December of 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you see a check there made out to Gary Johansson?
Yes, $4,050.
And whose signature is that?
It's Nikki.
And did you and Gary ever receive this check?
No.
Next, we're showing a partial statement for January of 2017. It shows a check there made out to Gary Johansson. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And what's the amount of that check?
$4,075.
And who's it signed by?
Nikki.
And did you or Gary or your company ever receive this check? Next page is a partial statement for February of 2017. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you see a check there made out to Gary Johansson?
Yes, $2,850.
All right. And who does it appear to be signed by?
That's Nikki.
And did you or Gary or your company ever receive this check from the defendants?
No.
Okay. I'm next looking at a partial statement from March of 2017. Do you see that?
I see that.
And down here is a check that's made out to Gary T. Johansson. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And what's that amount for?
$2,825.
And who's the signer on it?
It's Nikki's.
Did you and Gary or your company ever receive this check?
No.
Okay. Next, I'm showing a partial statement for April of 2017. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Over here, we see a check made out to Gary T. Johansson. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And how much is that for?
$1,975.
And who's it signed by?
Nikki.
Have you and Gary or your company ever seen this check before? You never was paid over to you?
No.
Okay.
This would be the time when we'd have most of the houses sold, so that would be the less amounts.
So that's why the amounts are going down from the 4,000 numbers we saw
Because we
earlier.
were selling the houses.
Okay. So that part makes sense, but what doesn't make sense is that you never received these
I
checks.
never received any money. Never saw these checks. Never saw a checkbook by Aspire.
Okay. Next, we're looking at a partial statement from May of 2017. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you see a check made out to Gary Johansson there?
$1,975.
And whose signature is on that?
It's Nikki's.
And did you or Gary or your company ever receive this check?
No, I just can't believe it.
Next page shows a partial statement for June of 2017. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And then over here, we see a check made out to Gary Johansson. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And what's the amount for?
$1,975.
And whose signature is that?
Nikki's.
Did you ever receive this check? You or Gary or your company?
No. And this 11, this one over here would be the amount from the house that we decided to keep. We kept this house.
Oh, thank you for calling that to my attention.
And that's what the rent was on that house.
And did you ever receive this rent payment from the
No.
Casavellis? Okay. And then finally, the last page here, this is a partial statement for July of 2017. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And do you see a check here on this page made out to Gary Johansson?
Yes, I do.
And
that
what-
was $1,150.
$1,150?
That was what the rent was at that time.
And who's the signer on it?
Nikki.
And did you ever receive this payment? So after reviewing all those, is it still your testimony that none of those checks were ever received by you or Gary or your company?
Absolutely. We never received them.
And then if we were to review the bank records in exhibit number 17, which are the bank records we received for the Aspire account that these partial statements come from, are the bank records, the official bank records, going to show that those checks were ever negotiated?
No, that's what I saw, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then, Your Honor, I created a demonstrative exhibit for this as well, just to kind of help the jury see this.
You're welcome to have it marked.
I believe there are enough copies here for everyone. And I'm going to take one page and I'll put it on the big screen for you all, and I'll kind of go through it with you. So just so you have this and you can look at it a little more conveniently in your hands there, the first column is referring to the exhibit number that we just looked at with the partial statements. So that's exhibit number 19. That column's going to be consistent all the way down. And then it's going to refer to that exhibit's month and year of the partial statement that was provided. That'll be the second column. And then we'll talk about what account it is. That account is going to be consistent all the way down. It's always going to be the 2077 Aspire account, which is marked as exhibit 17. Then we're listing this as a fake check amount. This is the amount of the check that is showing up on this part, on these exhibits that show the partial statements, exhibit 19's partial statements. Then you can compare that if you wish. If you want to go verify Donna's testimony, you can look at exhibit 17 and it gives the page number here, 1406 to 14011, and shows that the check listed here does not appear here in the bank records that were obtained by subpoena. And the comment section just talks about what is shown or not shown. In most cases, it's just the check is not shown on the official bank record. As you go down a little bit further, though, you'll see that some errors were made by them as they attempted to manipulate the records. And for instance, on this particular one for October of 2016, you will notice that not only is the forged check not showing in the official bank records, but the forged check they provided says page 4 of 4, when for that particular statement, there's only 2 of 2 that came with the official bank record statement. So they made an error on October 16, November 2016, December 2016, and January 2017, where they messed up on the page numbers there. So what you can see is clearly that what we're asserting is a deliberate forgery and fraud to cover up the fact that they took all the money that they took from the Johansons. And as you go down, there's actually a couple more references to those page number errors that you would see right there. And I think that's all there. So. What is it? Donna, let me just ask you a few questions. You've had to give some hard testimony here about the Casavellis. I know that Dr. Wilson's report talked about how close you felt to Mrs. Casavelli. By giving your testimony here, you're not wishing them any ill will or spite, are you?
No. I can't tell you how much I thought of Nikki. I would have never guessed that this would ever happen. It's just like unbelievable. I thought she was such a great gal. And to hear what she was doing to me makes me very, very sad, because she was a lovely, lovely, lovely gal to me, and lots of support at a time that I really needed it. I have a son and a daughter-in-law who are wonderful, but they have 4 children. And so they were always busy with our grandchildren. And I hated to bother them. And I thought, oh, great. I don't have to bother them. We have these 2 wonderful people. They can work with their family and do with their family. And because we have 2 people that really care for us. And their slogan to us all the time was, Donna, we're here to help you. And he'd say to Gary, Gary, I'm here to help you. So when they first starting helping us, when the flood happened across in the house across the street, the Adams house, and we knew they were living in one of our other houses, and we knew a little about them, but we knew she was into photography. So we thought we better have some pictures of that house. So Gary called Nikki and said, Nikki, would you mind coming over and taking some pictures of the flooded area in the house? Because we think we're going to have to need them for the insurance, for us to be able to collect on the insurance. And she said yes, and he came along. And then it was problems with this company. They just stayed on the job, and the water was all gone, and they just stayed there. And so Nick suggested that we have a lawsuit against them to do it. He was very much into legal stuff. Gary and I never had any trouble with the tenants, and always worked out something with them. And he was very harsh with the people.
Who was harsh? Nick was harsh?
Nick was, trying to get the money. And so we thought, well, he's working for us. We wouldn't do it like that. But he did. And he was very good at it. He would get the money. And probably Gary and I wouldn't have. But he did his job in that. And so then the floors were buckled.
But let's stop there. He did his job collecting the money, but he didn't do his job in terms of paying those rents over to you, did he?
Right. No, but I mean, in our eyes, it looked to us as he was doing everything. But at that time, you see, he wasn't collecting the rent.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me ask you a little bit about the defendants. Your goal in coming to court is not to hurt them in any way.
Oh, no. They were very, very good to us.
Okay.
And by meaning good to us, I mean giving support to us.
Yes.
The support that we didn't have, because you got to realize now that Gary was going downhill. And so in 2015, he said to Donna, let's have some management in these houses so I can get out of this. And I thought, oh, good. We can go to Minnesota. We don't have to worry about collecting rents. What's going to happen at the house? We're going to have to look up a number fast, have an air conditioning guy or whatever. And so it was an answer for us.
Okay.
It was an answer.
Let me get back to the purpose that you're here for. By coming here, it's not because you're trying to be mean to the Casavellis. is that
No.
correct? You
But
just want.
I couldn't believe it. I can't believe this. You know, it's just like a nightmare that this would happen because I like those two people.
And so your purpose is just to get back what
Money
was
that should be Gary and I's money.
right. So you're asking to get $127,000 back. Is that correct?
Right.
You're asking to get the house back. Is that
Yes.
correct? You're asking to get back the commission payments that they were not entitled to because they weren't licensed real estate agents, correct?
Yes.
You're asking them to turn over the rents that they collected that they never paid over to you that we showed in those transfers, correct?
Yes.
And you're asking for them to pay the rent they should have paid while they were acting as property managers, correct?
Correct.
And then you're also asking for them to pay rent since they took title to the house from July 2017 to present. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you want back what you believe is yours.
That's it.
All right. And then you're also asking for Gary's side of things for statutory damages. The financial exploitation statute says that you not only get back what was taken, but you can add damages to that of 1 or 2 times that amount. And because of how you discovered that the defendants were acting, in this case, taking away assets from you, are you asking for double damages on Gary's portion of those?
On Gary's, yes.
Yes, so just on Gary's portion.
Yes.
And then for punitive damages under the fraud claim, and the fraud claim is going to be something the jury's going to decide, are you asking for those fraud damages to roughly mirror what you would get under Gary's portion of the financial exploitation statute?
Yes.
So you're asking under the fraud claim to get back all the property that was taken,
Yes.
and then half of that is, well, the 127,000 is all Gary's, so you're asking for that to be
Yes.
doubled. And then all the other assets, you're asking for his half to be doubled. Is that
I wasn't involved in that 127,000.
right? That was Gary's.
Yeah, that was Gary's.
Okay. And then along with this, as part of the financial exploitation claim, this is something that we'll probably have to talk about after a judgment's rendered, if one's rendered in your favor, that you're asking for your attorney's fees to be paid, that Gary incurred as a vulnerable adult. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then on the fraud side, to mirror that, you're asking for an additional fraud or an additional punitive damages award to help defray the costs of the litigation. And if I told you that amount of litigation was about $325,000, would that be something that you would be able to testify to as being about what you've spent in attorney's fees?
That's you're probably right. Yeah.
All right. Your Honor, I think with that, we are going to rest.
Thank you. Veronica, do you have any questions? Okay, very well. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor, subject to recall.
Thank you. Do you have any additional witnesses?
No, ma'am.
Would this be a good time for our morning recess?
It would be an excellent time.
All right, so let's take our morning break. It'll be 15 minutes. Please remember the admonition. Enjoy your break. We'll be back in 15 minutes.
All rise.
Thank you. Please be seated. Let the record reflect that the jurors are excused. We are in the presence of counsel as well as Ms. Johansson. Counsel, is there anything that you'd like to address on the record at this time from your aspect?
No, Your Honor, I'm just, if the defendants aren't going to be here to testify, I'm ready to proceed to closing argument anytime the court is.
All right, so take a look at, would you pass this to him? Thank you. A copy of the proposed final instructions, I'll give you a few minutes to take a look at that. Attached to it as well is a proposed form of judgment. We'll take our break. You can turn that off. I'm going to go to the restroom. Thank you.